How are you?
Man, in the house like furniture, down like gravity, you know.
I'm getting such a charge out of you
Come on, baby.
grooving to our theme,
Come
which is
on, man. That theme song hit me. That caught me by surprise. You see my shoulders?
I did. I have never felt cooler than that in my entire life. I don't even have to do
Come
the
on,
interview
man.
now.
Come on, baby. That was good. You good?
I'm not
Baby,
too bad. I'm getting through it.
thank you.
Why congrats on the book. Why was family the right way to tell your story?
I think it was the right way to tell my story, and the fact that me and my daughters just it's a constant work in progress of me knocking down emotional doors, making sure that door can swing open and they can come and talk to me about anything. But the way I wanted to tell it was how I grew up, like how my grandmother, my grandfather, and my town shaped me that would give me some type of vision or some type of way that when I finally have my children, what are the do's, the don'ts, or what are the things that my kids could teach me?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about what you learned through that life. Your grandmother is an incredible character in this book, huge influence on your life, really important to your story. I want to give people listening to this who haven't read the book yet a sense of what she meant to you when you were a kid. So I want you to do me a favor. Imagine I'm a friend of yours as a kid back in Texas. I'm about to
Yeah.
go over to your house for the first time. What would you tell me to expect about your grandmother? What would you want me to
Oh,
know?
hey, first of all, you better have your pants pulled up. You better make sure you don't do the wrong thing. Don't bring no alcohol, no type of narcotics over here, and bring Jesus. Bring Jesus with you. Because my grandmother was basically, you've all seen Tyler Perry, right? My grandmother would literally need to get receipts from Tyler Perry when he first Madea because my grandmother was Madea. Like I didn't have a crew growing up. So there was one particular instance where, somebody did something bad to me and I'm outside, you're like crying. And my grandma come out, what's wrong with you, boy? You had that cry. Like, I was down to do you try, man. He said, who? And so she says, hold on. And so she says, come on, we're gonna walk down to the house, right? Because we're in Terrell, Texas, a little small town. So as we're walking, she puts on a moo right? Those moo But as she's walking, the right side of the moo is swinging a little extra. I said, what's in that moo And my grandmother had a 38 pistol in that moo and knocked on the door with the pistol and put it in the door. Whoever walks out says, listen, this boy right here is special. He got a talent and ain't nobody gonna mess it up. And I guarantee next time I come in here, I'm gonna have this thing cocking, I'm gonna fire it in this house. And she told the lady, now I raised your ass. And she did. She was a person who raised everybody in the city because she had a nursery school. She said, don't make me come down here no more because this boy is special.
How did she know you were special?
My grandmother knew I was special because first of all, she adopted me at 7 months, but I was a television kid, meaning that I would just watch TV over and over again in the nursery school. And so I would mimic the different people I would see. At that time, it was people like, Sammy Davis Jr. Who could take a sunrise? So I was doing all these different, characters. And she was like, this boy got something. And so what she did was she made sure that the city knew that I had an art, I had a craft. And when I was in the third grade, Mrs. Reeves' class, now mind you, since my grandmother was a teacher, I already had the curriculum from the first to eighth grade. So I was super smart, but I'm here, imagine me in class in third grade, just making sounds and noises. And so Miss Reeves says, listen, I'm gonna crack your head open if you don't be quiet. But my Miss Reeves brokered a deal with my grandmother. Miss Reeves says, listen, how about this? At the end of class on Fridays for 10 minutes, I'll give you an opportunity to do stand-up comedy for the kids. So in third grade, I'm doing stand-up comedy for my school classmates. And I was just doing the jokes that I heard from the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson at the time, and people are laughing. And the next thing you know, fourth grade, fifth grade, my audience started to grow to where it was people coming from high school to hear this kid. And then Lionel Richie hit the Jerry curl. I even had a curl like Lionel Richie. And I started singing, hello, is it me you're looking for? So I added music to it. So basically, my grandmother was able to see that this little young, big-headed boy was going places, and she was willing to make sure she held everybody accountable that would come into my space.
I was surprised to see that you did a Jimmy Carter impression as part of that.
Oh man, yeah. So here's the thing. So the only television in our little house was in my room. And so I would have to listen to my grandmother watching the Tonight Show, who would have people like Franklin Ajay on as a comic, or David Brenner or Steve Allen. And then in one particular night, they had Rich Little, who was an impersonation. He did impersonation.
Yeah, Canadian.
Yeah, he was a comedian. So he did this thing. What if Jimmy Carter, he was president at the time, Jimmy Carter sung "You Light Up My Life." And he does his impersonation of Jimmy Carter. Hi, so many nights, me and my brother Billy would sit by the window waiting for someone to bring some peanuts and beer. So I took that to class. So what happened is that the classmates are laughing just because of the impersonation. They don't necessarily know Jimmy Carter, but the teachers were laughing and started bringing the teachers around. And then even when I got into just before the 80s when Reagan came in, I was the only Black kid doing an impersonation of Ronald Reagan at the time. Well, as a matter of fact, there you go again.
That's a solid Reagan, man.
Listen, that. So my grandmother knew to cultivate, to make sure everyone was on deck when it came to me, and things worked out.
What I find interesting about those skills you had as a comedian, as an actor, those things that brought you your fame and your success, even all those years ago when you were in third grade, they don't always work as well as a parent. And you're right in the book, and I found this really interesting, how sometimes your family reacts to you clowning to cover up a tense moment, telling you, stop being charismatic and trying to touch up the painting. As an entertainer, is that a hard lesson to learn?
It's a hard lesson to learn, because here's the thing: like you want everyone to see it like you see it, but my dream is not their dream. They have other things in their life that they want to do, and it really comes into play when my daughter. We had to go to therapy, and the first thing I was like, man, Black people don't go to therapy. Black folks ain't going to no therapy, and she was like, no, this is what we need. So there I am at the therapist, and what do? I try to Jamie Foxx it. I try to overtalk, and I'm this, she's this, and I'm using my whole mouth to pronunciate. I'm talking like I should talk like this way to the therapist. And the therapist just looked at me and said, hey, be quiet.
Whoa.
Let your daughter talk. And my daughter told me, Dad, I didn't like you at times. All of the Disneyland and everything that you were doing, it was good, but I felt like it was a substitute. I felt like you were trying to make up for lost time. And I was like, I was away working. So when I would see my daughter, I said, let's just go to Disneyland. Let Mickey Mouse fill in the blanks. Let Mickey Mouse fill in the emotional potholes that maybe I've left because I wasn't present, because I was trying to pursue my dream. And those types of moments is what my daughters taught me in holding me accountable, because it needs to be an opportunity for my daughters to have a voice. That's why it works the way it works, because I listen. I had to stop being this guy, this character, because on the red carpet and all that don't mean nothing to them. Yeah. I'm still his dad. And I think when you read the book, you'll see that, because I wanted it to be exactly raw and gritty, how I talk, how I feel. And it was good to do it, and also be able to reference with my daughters on how stories went. Because when I was telling the stories, and this happened and that happened, and they were like, Dad, it didn't happen like that. This is what actually happened. You made a fool of yourself, and it was this. I saw where. So by being able to have them with me in this process of writing the book, it's honest. It's really honest and funny.
I took a lot of meaning from the part, starting out talking about your grandmother and now talking about your kids, I found great meaning in the story you told about when you were opening presents at Christmas and someone said to you, I'm tired of opening presents.
Yeah. What that was that we were overshooting the runway, and that could be a thing. Like if I didn't address the fact that, y'all tired? Opening the present? Okay, well, check out next year. You see what happened. It won't be all of this, because what was happening was we were over privileging them this, because when I was growing up, to get a gift for Christmas, we ain't have. I was on free lunch. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like so to get a gift, like a thing. So I wanted them to respect that. So the next year we made it lean. I said, listen, you want the present, you're going to have to work for it. You have to do something to work for it to get that. Because if I didn't put those sort of fail stops up and say, hey, this is not how we're going to live. Then when they get older, they'll think that's what it's supposed to be. They'll get tired of doing whatever it is. And I wanted them to still have a perspective of like, you're going to have hard work. I don't want to spoil you, but I want to spoil you. And how do I spoil you? By giving you what you may like, but also giving you the lesson of what it is to be able to maintain that. So when you get in this position, you'll be able to provide that for your kids.
What is something you learned from your grandmother growing up poor in Texas that was the most meaningful thing you could impart to your kids growing up rich in Los Angeles?
I tell you what it was. It was a sense of you're supposed to be there. Like my grandmother, being a maid, my grandfather being a yard man. She said, I want you to learn classical piano. I said, why, Granny? So you can go on the other side of the tracks. I said, what the other side? Like white people? She said, no, stupid. The metaphoric tracks. The music will take you all over the world. And I was like, Granny, all over? She said, yeah, because you play that music, you can go anywhere. So what she was teaching me was giving me a trade, giving me a tool, because she knew I was able to do it. But she was saying, you belong in those places. And so once I learned how to play the piano, she would have me come on the other side of the tracks and play for these, big, like white families that had money and all that. And she instilled in me that learn a little bit about everything and everybody so that when you do eventually go around the world, you know what you're talking about. So I would take that sensibility and explain to my kids. That's why I talk to you so much about get it all, get everything you can, everything that is out there that you can grab, get it all. I teach them how my grandmother taught me that there's nothing on the other side of fear and things like that. And so it really does come into play, because when these winds blow out here in California, and winds blow anywhere nowadays, and trying to rear our kids because there's so much on the social media, you really need to be able to stand firm and sort of guide your kids, not be overbearing, but give them a way for them to access everything that you've been taught so they can use it in their everyday life.
I want to close off like this. You mentioned this is just in passing in the book, but I wonder if you could tell us a bit more about it. You talk about the late Chadwick Boseman coming to you for advice. He was about to hit it big in Black Panther. Just tell me a little bit more about your friendship with him in that moment.
Well, I tell you what it was this, and my sister, who went on to work with him very closely, you could see a person about to have their moment. And so I've done this with a lot of the young actors, singers, and just say, hey, just like my grandmother said, you're supposed to have this. This is supposed to be happening for you, and embrace it and enjoy it. And it wasn't a whole thing of that we need to go through this big sort of speech. It was just him being able to sit on the stoop in my place and just be comfortable, just be relaxed. And then to unfortunately find out what was actually going on with him was so sad, but I was happy that I got an opportunity to share that moment with him before his big coming out party with Black Panther.
I just love it. I love that there's more than just, your kids coming to you for advice. I love that.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. What I wanted to do in this book is like, and that's why I'm so excited for people to read it, because when they read it, they'll say like, oh, it's this. Oh, he talks about that. Oh, he talks about, because it all sort of connects together with not only taking that beautiful lesson that my grandfather and grandmother taught me, but sometimes I consider in my kids, whether, whoever comes to my house and say, hey, I can pass this on as well, and maybe that might help them in their journey.
Jamie, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks so much for your time, and thanks for the book.
Thank you.
Jamie Foxx was my guest. His new book, Act Like You Got Some Sense, is out now.